"Mommy, why does that man keep staring at us?" The words came from somewhere below her left elbow where her son stood clutching a glass of sparkling cider with both hands. Meredith Callahan did not need to turn around to know who Owen meant. She had felt the weight of that gaze the moment she stepped onto the terrace 15 minutes ago. It pressed against the back of her neck like a hand she remembered too well. She turned anyway. Across the crowded terrace of the Belworth Vineyard estate a man stood frozen mid-conversation. His champagne glass had stopped halfway to his lips. His face had gone the color of old paper. Even from 30 feet away, Meredith could see the recognition moving through him like a wave that could not decide whether to crash or retreat. Victor Pemberton. 10 years older. 10 years more successful. 10 years of distance collapsing into nothing as their eyes met across a crowd of strangers who had no idea what they were witnessing. "Mom." Owen tugged at her sleeve again. His voice had taken on that particular note of concern that children use when adults are behaving strangely. "Are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Before Meredith could respond, a woman appeared at Victor's side. Radiant in cream-colored silk. Blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon. A smile that could launch 1,000 magazine covers. Diana linked her arm through Victor's with the easy possessiveness of a woman about to marry the man she loved. "Mary." Diana's voice carried across the terrace like music. "You made it. I see you have already spotted my fiancé. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you are watching from and what time it is where you are at. If you are new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever." The terrace seemed to tilt beneath Meredith's feet. The golden afternoon light that had seemed so beautiful moments ago now felt harsh and exposing. She watched Diana approach with Victor in tow and understood with terrible clarity that the elegant weekend she had anticipated had just become something else entirely. Diana reached them first, pulling Meredith into an embrace that smelled of expensive perfume and genuine affection. "I cannot believe you are really here. It has been so long. And this must be Owen." She released Meredith and bent slightly to address the boy with the warm interest of a woman who genuinely liked children. "Your mother has told me so much about you. I hear you are quite the scientist." Owen straightened his shoulders the way he always did when adults paid attention to him. "I am interested in marine biology. Specifically bioluminescent organisms. They make their own light, which is efficient from an evolutionary perspective." Diana laughed with what seemed like genuine delight. "Efficient. I love that. Victor, darling, come meet my oldest friend and her remarkable son." Victor had not moved. He stood 3 feet away staring at Owen with an expression that made Meredith's blood run cold. She knew that look. She had seen it once before on the face of a man working through a mathematical problem that did not add up. "Victor." Diana's voice carried a note of confusion. "Is everything all right?" He blinked. Seemed to remember where he was. Stepped forward with the mechanical precision of someone operating on autopilot. "Meredith." His voice was rougher than she remembered. Lower. Aged by years and success and something else she could not identify. "It has been a long time. 10 years. The words came out before she could stop them. "Give or take. You two know each other." Diana looked between them with the bright confusion of someone who has stumbled into the middle of a conversation conducted in a language she does not speak. "We met in Boston," Victor said carefully. "Before I relocated to California. Before the company. What a small world." Diana seemed relieved to have an explanation, however incomplete. "Well, this is perfect then. My oldest friend and my future husband already acquainted." The weekend just got even better. Owen had been watching this exchange with the quiet intensity that characterized everything he did. His green eyes moved from face to face, cataloging reactions the way he cataloged tide pool specimens. When his gaze finally settled on Victor, something in his expression shifted. "You have the same eyes as me," Owen observed with the devastating directness of childhood. "Green with gold flecks. My mom says they are unusual." The silence that followed seemed to swallow all the ambient noise of the party. Somewhere a string quartet played softly. Glasses clinked. Guests laughed at jokes that had nothing to do with the small drama unfolding by the terrace railing. Victor stared at Owen. Owen stared back. And Meredith watched 10 years of careful construction begin to crack. That is quite an observation. Victor managed finally. His voice had gone strange and thin. You are very perceptive. I notice things. Owen shrugged. My teachers say it is a gift. My mom says it can also be a burden. Diana glanced at her watch with the distracted efficiency of a woman running a large event. I hate to interrupt, but I need to steal Victor for photographs before the light changes. Merry your cottage is the blue one past the rose garden. Number 7. Owen, there is a whole program of activities for the young guests, including I am told a marine biology scavenger hunt tomorrow. Make yourselves at home. Dinner is at 7. She tugged Victor away before anyone could object. He went, but his head turned as he walked. His eyes found Meredith's one more time. In them she saw questions multiplying faster than either of them could count. Mom. Owen's voice was very quiet. What just happened? Meredith put her hand on her son's shoulder. She could feel him vibrating slightly with the particular frequency of a child who knows adults are keeping secrets. Nothing, sweetheart. Just old friends reconnecting. Let us go find our cottage. She guided him away from the terrace and down a flagstone path lined with lavender. Behind them the party continued as though the world had not just shifted on its axis. As though the man about to marry her oldest friend was not also the man who had fathered her child. As though the careful separate life she had built over 10 years had not just collided with everything she had spent a decade running from. The cottage was beautiful. Blue shutters just as Diana had promised. A small porch overlooking a garden heavy with late summer roses. Inside the furnishings were expensive without being ostentatious. The kind of understated luxury that whispered rather than shouted about the wealth behind it. Owen moved through the space, cataloging details the way he always did in new environments. 2 bedrooms. A sitting area with a fireplace that probably works. A basket of snacks including 3 kinds of chocolate. He paused by the window overlooking the garden. This is nicer than our whole house, Mom. Different. Not better. Meredith said automatically, though she knew he was right. Their small bungalow on the Oregon coast was cozy and well-maintained, but it was not this. It was not a guest cottage on a billionaire's wedding estate. Can I have chocolate before dinner? 1 piece. Owen selected carefully, then retreated to the smaller bedroom with his backpack and his thoughts. Meredith could hear him unpacking with methodical precision, arranging his books and his notebook and the small collection of shells he brought everywhere for comfort. She sank onto the sofa in the sitting room and pressed her hands against her eyes. 3 weeks ago she had received the invitation. Heavy cream paper embossed with gold. Diana Keane and her fiancé requested the pleasure of her company at their wedding celebration. A weekend of festivities at a vineyard estate in Napa Valley. All expenses covered. Please bring your son. Diana's texts had been enthusiastic, bordering on frantic. She needed her oldest friend there. She needed someone who had known her before. Someone who could remind her who she was underneath all the event planning and society obligations. Meredith had said yes because Owen deserved an adventure. Because the Oregon coast got lonely in late summer. Because Diana had been a good friend once and perhaps could be again. Because the invitation had never once mentioned the groom's full name. My fiancé. Diana had written in text after text. My future husband. He. Him. Always pronouns. Never the name that would have stopped Meredith cold. Victor Pemberton. Founder and CEO of Pemberton Technologies. The cybersecurity firm she had watched grow from a dream discussed over coffee into a $2 billion empire tracked obsessively by financial news she tried not to read. The man whose face occasionally appeared in magazines she quickly closed. The man she had loved completely and lost entirely and never quite managed to forget. The man who was now engaged to Diana Keane. Who was marrying her college roommate. Who had no idea that the 9-year-old boy currently unpacking shells in the next room shared his green eyes and his angular jaw and his way of tilting his head when working through complex problems. Or did he? The questions surfaced unbidden. Victor's face when he looked at Owen. The calculations happening behind his eyes. The way he had said you are very perceptive as though the words cost him something. Meredith's phone buzzed. An unknown number with a California area code. Please. I need to understand. Meet me at the old equipment barn past the North Vineyard at 9 tonight. Come alone. She stared at the message for a long time. The phrasing was unmistakably Victor's. He had always said, "I need to understand," when confronted with something that did not make sense. It had been one of his most endearing qualities back when she found his qualities endearing. She should ignore it. She should take Owen to dinner and smile through the small talk and get through this weekend without any private conversations that could only make everything worse. But she had spent 10 years not understanding. 10 years building a story about what had happened and why. 10 years living with questions that never got answered because the man who could have answered them had made it abundantly clear he wanted nothing to do with her. Or had he? The doubt was new. It had arrived with the shock on his face this afternoon. With the way he looked at her like she was a ghost. With the 5 words that kept echoing through her mind. It has been a long time. Not "I am surprised to see you here." Not "this is awkward." Not even the cold dismissal she might have expected from a man who had paid his mother to make her disappear. Just the simple acknowledgement of elapsed time. As though those 10 years had weighed on him too. Dinner was an elaborate affair held in the estate's main hall. Long tables arranged to encourage conversation. Candlelight that flattered everyone. Wine that probably cost more per bottle than Meredith's monthly grocery budget. She found herself seated between Diana's aunt, who talked extensively about her rose garden, and a tech investor who wanted to know if she had any interest in blockchain. Owen was at the children's table across the room, sitting next to a girl about his age who seemed equally serious and equally relieved to have found a kindred spirit. Victor sat at the head of the main table with Diana beside him. He was too far away for conversation, but not too far to notice every time his attention drifted toward Meredith's end of the room. Which was often. Diana noticed too. Halfway through the main course, she leaned over to whisper something to Victor. His response made her laugh, but there was something forced about the sound. After dinner there were drinks on the terrace and a string quartet, and the kind of mingling that Meredith had always found exhausting. She collected Owen from the children's table, where he was deeply engaged in explaining tidal patterns to his new friend, and walked him back to their cottage. "Did you have a good time?" "The food was excellent," Owen said, which was his way of saying yes. "And Lily knows almost as much about the ocean as I do. She wants to be a marine veterinarian. She says there are not enough of them. That sounds like a good friend to have." She watched him brush his teeth and change into pajamas and arrange his shells on the nightstand in the precise configuration he preferred. When she bent to kiss him goodnight, he caught her hand. "Mom." "Yes, sweetheart." "Who is that man?" "The one getting married. I know you said you knew him from before, but there is something else." "I can tell." Meredith sat on the edge of his bed. The mattress was softer than the one at home. Everything here was softer except the questions. "What makes you say that?" "The way you looked at each other." Owen's green eyes were steady on her face. Like there was a whole conversation happening that nobody else could hear. He was too observant. Had always been too observant. From the time he was small he had noticed things other children missed. Patterns. Connections. The subtle frequencies of adult emotion that most children learn to ignore. "We were close once," Meredith said carefully. "A long time ago. Before you were born. Then things changed and we went different directions." "What kind of close?" "The kind where you care about someone very much and think you might care about them forever. And then you find out you were wrong." Owen processed this with his usual methodical attention. "Were you in love with him?" "Yes." "Is that why seeing him is hard?" "Yes." Owen nodded, as though this confirmed a theory he had already developed. "Thank you for telling me. I know you do not like talking about before I was born." Meredith smoothed his hair back from his forehead. The same unruly dark hair Victor had. The same way it fell across his eyes when he was tired. "Get some sleep, sweetheart. We have a big day tomorrow." She left his door slightly open the way he preferred and stood in the sitting room trying to decide what to do. The clock on the mantel showed 8:30. Half an hour until Victor expected her at the equipment barn. She could stay here. Lock the door. Pretend she never received the message. But Owen's question kept echoing through her mind. Who is that man? He deserved an answer. A real answer. Not the careful half-truth she had been telling him for 9 years about a father who was someone from before who made choices that took him far away. If Meredith was going to give him that answer, she needed to understand what had actually happened. And the only person who could explain was waiting for her in a barn at the edge of a vineyard. She checked on Owen one more time. He was already asleep, his breathing deep and even. The moonlight through his window caught the shells on his nightstand and made them glow like small treasures. She left a note on the kitchen counter in case he woke. Stepped out into the cool evening air. Followed the path north past the roses, past the main vineyard, past the careful boundaries of the wedding celebration, and into the quiet darkness beyond. The barn was old but well maintained. Clearly still used for equipment storage. A soft light glowed from within, suggesting someone had already arrived. Meredith paused at the entrance, taking a breath that did not quite steady her. Then she pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. Victor stood by a workbench covered with winemaking implements. He had removed his dinner jacket and rolled up his sleeves. In the dim light, he looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like the man she had once known. The one who stayed up late working on problems. The one who forgot to eat when he was thinking. The one who looked at her sometimes like she was the answer to a question he had not known he was asking. "You came." He said it like he had not been certain she would. "I came." They stood 10 feet apart. Close enough to talk. Far enough to retreat. "Is he mine?" Victor asked. The words scraped like they had been held inside too long. "Owen. Is he my son?" Meredith had imagined this moment 100 times over the years. In her imagination she had always been composed. Righteous. Armed with the full weight of her justified anger. In reality she just felt tired. "Yes." Victor closed his eyes. His hand found the edge of the workbench and gripped it like the only solid thing in a tilting world. "Why did you not tell me?" The anger arrived then. Hot and sudden and almost welcome after so many years of trying to forget. "I did tell you. I called. I emailed. I showed up at your mother's house because you would not answer your phone. You sent her to pay me off, Victor. You had your mother offer me money for my discretion about my condition." Victor's eyes opened. In them she saw something she had not expected. Confusion. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Your mother. Constance. She came to my apartment 3 weeks after you left for San Francisco. She said you had received all my messages. That you had decided I was a loose end that needed handling. She offered me a settlement for my silence. When I refused, she had your lawyers terminate our lease and made sure everyone in our building knew I was being evicted. That is not possible. It happened, Victor. I was there. I spent the next month trying to figure out how the man I loved could have become someone who would do that." Victor pushed away from the workbench and began pacing the length of the barn. His footsteps echoed against the concrete floor. "I was in San Francisco for 3 weeks. The investor required complete communication lockdown. Their security protocols routed everything through their servers. When I got back to Boston, you were gone. The apartment was empty. Your phone was disconnected. No one would tell me where you went." Meredith felt something cold move through her. "That is not what your mother said." "My mother." Victor stopped pacing. His face in the dim light had gone strange and still. "What exactly did my mother say?" "She said you knew. That you had read my emails and listened to my voicemails and decided that a pregnant girlfriend was not compatible with your plans. She said you wanted to handle it quietly. That she was offering me a chance to leave with dignity before things became unpleasant." Victor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You were pregnant. When you came to see her. You were already pregnant." "Yes. I was trying to tell you. I did not know until 2 weeks after you left, and then I could not reach you. I thought something was wrong. I thought maybe you had been in an accident. So I went to your mother because I did not know where else to go. And she told you I knew. That I wanted you gone. That is what she said." Victor sank onto a wooden crate near the workbench. He put his head in his hands. The gesture was so uncharacteristic, so far from the composed executive who had greeted her on the terrace, that Meredith did not know what to make of it. "I never received any of your messages," he said into his hands. "Not one. And I certainly never asked my mother to offer you money. I did not know you were pregnant, Meredith. I did not know until 4 hours ago when I saw Owen and did the math. You expect me to believe that?" He looked up. His eyes were wet, which shocked her more than anything else that had happened. "I expect you to believe that I spent 10 years wondering why you left me. Why you vanished without a word. Why the woman I was going to marry decided I was not worth fighting for. You were going to marry me. I had the ring. Victor said flatly. I was going to propose when I got back from San Francisco. The whole trip was about securing our future. About proving I could build something worthy of you. The barn seemed to contract around them. The air grew thick with a decade of misunderstanding. That is not possible. Meredith heard herself say. You did not want me. Your mother made that very clear. My mother. Victor's voice had gone cold in a way she recognized from years ago. He used to sound like that when talking about family expectations. Family legacy. The weight of the Pemberton name. My mother wanted a great many things for me. None of them included a woman from a middle-class family with no connections and ambitions of her own. So she made me disappear. It would not be the first time. Victor stood again. The restless energy was back. She has done it before. Other relationships she considered unsuitable. I always knew she interfered, but I never thought she would go this far. Meredith leaned against the barn door. Her legs no longer felt reliable. What are you saying, Victor? I am saying that I think my mother intercepted your messages. All of them. She knew about the security protocols with the investor. She could have arranged for my personal communications to be filtered. And when you came to her for help, she saw an opportunity to solve a problem she had been wanting to solve since the day I brought you home to meet her. The pieces were rearranging themselves in Meredith's mind. The story she had lived with for 10 years shifting like a kaleidoscope into a new pattern. Why would she do that? Because I loved you. Victor said simply. Because I was willing to give up everything for you. The family name. The expectations. The predetermined path. My mother does not lose. And you were a threat to everything she had planned for my life. Meredith shook her head. I do not know what to believe. Neither do I. Victor's voice cracked on the last word. But I know that I spent 10 years mourning you. Building a company to prove I was worth something to someone. Telling myself that work was enough. And now I find out that you were not the one who left. That you tried to stay. That I have a son I never knew existed. The word hung in the air between them. Son. His name is Owen. Meredith said quietly. He is 9 years old. He loves the ocean and science and asking questions that adults cannot answer. He has your eyes and your way of working through problems. He is the best thing that ever happened to me. Victor's face crumpled. He turned away quickly, but not quickly enough to hide the emotion moving through him. I want to know him, he said to the far wall of the barn. I want to know everything about him. What he was like as a baby. When he took his first steps. What makes him laugh. He makes his own laugh. Meredith heard herself say. He always has. Finding things funny that no one else notices. Patterns. Contradictions. The absurdity of the universe. Like his mother. Like both of us, I think. They stood in silence. The weight of 10 lost years pressing down on them. What happens now? Meredith asked finally. Victor turned back to face her. In the dim light, his expression was unreadable. First, I need to talk to my mother. I need to confirm what happened. And then I need to tell Diana. Diana. The name landed like a stone in still water. I had almost forgotten. She is going to marry me tomorrow. Victor said. Or she was. I do not know what happens now. She does not know about any of this. She knows I had a serious relationship that ended badly. She does not know it was with you. She certainly does not know about Owen. Meredith thought about Diana. Her enthusiasm. Her warmth. Her genuine delight at having her oldest friend at her wedding. She is going to be devastated. Yes. This is not her fault, Victor. She did not know. I know. Victor ran a hand through his hair. That was another gesture Meredith remembered. He did it when he was overwhelmed. When the problems in front of him had no clean solutions. But I cannot marry her without telling her the truth. And once I tell her the truth, everything changes. Meredith pushed away from the barn door. We should not make any decisions tonight. It is late. We are both in shock. Whatever happens next, it should happen with clear heads. Tomorrow then. Victor said. After I talk to my mother. After I confirm what really happened 10 years ago. And if she denies it? She will not. Victor's voice was certain. She will try to justify it. She will explain all the reasons she was protecting me from myself. But she will not deny it. Lying is beneath her. Manipulation is not. Meredith moved toward the door, then stopped. One more question burning through her. If you never knew about Owen, if you really were going to propose, why did you never come looking for me? Afterward. When the company succeeded. When you had resources. Why did you just accept that I was gone? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Because I believed what my mother told me. He said finally. That you had moved on. Found someone else. That looking for you would only cause pain for everyone. He paused. And because part of me believed I deserved to lose you. That I was not worth fighting for. That you leaving was proof that I had always been right to doubt myself. Meredith felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been frozen for 10 years beginning to thaw. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. It is the truth. Victor met her eyes. I have spent a decade trying to outrun that feeling. Building something so impressive that maybe eventually I would believe I was worth something. And the whole time the woman I loved was out there raising my son alone. Because my mother decided she knew best. They looked at each other across the dimness of the barn. Two people who had believed completely different stories about their shared past. Two people who had built entire lives on foundations that might have been lies. I should get back, Meredith said. Owen might wake up. Of course. Victor moved toward her but stopped when she stepped back. Tomorrow. I will find you after I talk to my mother. She nodded and slipped out into the night. The walk back to the cottage felt longer than the walk there. Every step carried the weight of a new reality pressing against the old one. 10 years ago she had believed Victor abandoned her. Sent his mother to dismiss her with money. Chosen ambition over love, over family, over her. But what if none of that was true? What if they had both been victims of a woman who saw love as a threat and dealt with threats efficiently? The cottage was quiet when she returned. Owen still slept, his shells still gleaming on the nightstand. Meredith stood in his doorway watching the rise and fall of his breath. He had asked once when he was 7 whether he would ever meet his father. She had said she did not know. That his father's work took him all over the world. That some things were complicated in ways that did not have clean answers. She had not lied exactly. She simply had not known the truth herself. Now the truth was somewhere in this vineyard. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting for a conversation between a son and a mother that would determine what all of them did next. Meredith did not sleep much that night. The next morning dawned bright and clear. The kind of California morning that seemed designed for celebrations. Golden light spilling over the vineyard. Birds singing in the rose garden. The distant sound of staff preparing for the day's events. Owen was up early as usual. He found the basket of snacks and selected a granola bar for breakfast while Meredith made coffee from the small pot provided in the cottage. What happens today? Owen asked between bites. There is a brunch, Meredith said. Then activities in the afternoon. The wedding is at sunset. Will you be happy if the man gets married? Meredith paused, her cup halfway to her lips. Why do you ask that? Owen shrugged. You seemed sad last night. After talking to him. And you did not sleep well. I heard you walking around. I had a lot on my mind, sweetheart. Grown-up things. About him. The man with my eyes. Meredith set down her coffee. Owen. There is something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago, but I did not know how. Owen waited. His face was calm, but his hands had stilled on his granola bar. The way they always did when he was bracing for important information. The man who is getting married today. Victor. He is your father. Owen blinked. That was his only visible reaction. I thought he might be, he said after a moment. The eyes. And the way you looked at each other. It made sense. You are not surprised. A little. But I have been thinking about it since last night. Putting pieces together. He tilted his head. Does he know? He does now. He found out yesterday. When he saw you. Is that why you went to meet him? Last night. To talk about me. Partly. And to understand what happened. Why he was never part of your life. What did he say? Meredith chose her words carefully. He said he did not know about you. That he tried to find me a long time ago but could not. That there were misunderstandings that kept us apart. Do you believe him? Owen's directness never stopped surprising her. She considered the question seriously before answering. I think I do. But there are still things I need to understand. Owen nodded. His expression had gone thoughtful. The look he got when organizing new information into existing frameworks. What happens now? I do not know, sweetheart. He is supposed to marry Diana today. But now that he knows about you, everything has gotten very complicated. Is Diana going to be angry? She might be. She has a right to be. Meredith reached across the table and took Owen's hand. But I want you to know that none of this is your fault. Whatever happens between the adults, it has nothing to do with anything you did or did not do. Owen squeezed her hand back. I know, Mom. You have always been careful to make sure I knew that. The brunch was held in the estate's main garden. Long tables covered with white cloths. Fresh fruit and pastries and coffee strong enough to cut through any amount of sleeplessness. Guests milled about in the bright morning light, talking and laughing with a particular energy of people gathered to celebrate something happy. Meredith and Owen found a table near the edge of the gathering. Close enough to participate. Far enough to observe. Victor was not present. Neither was Diana. Their absence created a subtle tension in the air. Small clusters of guests murmuring questions to each other. Wondering where the happy couple had gone. Constance Pemberton was there. Meredith spotted her immediately. An elegant woman in her late 60s wearing clothes that probably cost more than Meredith's car. She sat at the center of a table of older guests, accepting compliments and holding court with the ease of long practice. Is that her? Owen asked quietly. He had followed Meredith's gaze. The grandmother. Yes. She looks expensive. Meredith could not help but smile. That is one way to put it. She also looks like someone who thinks she is always right. Owen's observation was too accurate to argue with. Constance Pemberton did look like that. The set of her shoulders. The tilt of her chin. The way she spoke to people as though dispensing wisdom to lesser beings. A hand touched Meredith's shoulder. She turned to find one of the wedding staff hovering behind her. Miss Callahan. Ms. Keene has requested that you join her in the main house. She said it is urgent. Meredith's stomach dropped. She looked at Owen. I will be fine, he said, reading her expression. Lily is over there. He pointed to the children's table where his new friend was waving enthusiastically. Go. I will stay where you can see me through the window. Meredith followed the staff member into the main house and up a curved staircase to a suite on the second floor. The door was open. Inside, Diana sat on a velvet settee wearing a silk robe and an expression that suggested the morning had not gone as planned. Victor stood by the window. His face was drawn. His clothes looked like he had slept in them, which he probably had. Diana looked up when Meredith entered. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. Close the door, please. Meredith did. Victor has told me everything, Diana said. Her voice was remarkably steady. About the two of you. About what his mother did. About Owen. Meredith did not know what to say. She had imagined this conversation, but never from Diana's side. I want to hear it from you. Diana continued. I want to understand how my oldest friend ended up at my wedding with a child that belongs to my fiancé. I did not know. Meredith said. That he was your fiancé. You never used his full name in your messages. You just said my fiancé. Him. By the time I realized who he was, we were already here. Diana considered this. You did not know. I swear to you, Diana. If I had known, I never would have come. I would not have put any of us through this. Diana nodded slowly. That was what Victor said. That you were as shocked as he was. I was. I am. Sit down. Diana gestured to an armchair across from the settee. Victor, come away from the window. You are making me nervous. Victor moved to stand beside the fireplace instead. Still separate from both women. still looking like a man whose world had recently collapsed. "I have been thinking," Diana said once they were all arranged, "about what to do. The wedding is supposed to happen in 8 hours. 200 guests are expecting a celebration. My parents flew in from Connecticut. Victor's investors are watching. Everything has been planned down to the last detail." She paused, drew a breath. "But I cannot marry someone who just discovered he has a 9-year-old son." She looked at Victor. "Not because I am angry with you. Not because I think you did anything wrong. But because everything is different now. You have a child, Victor. A child you have never met. A child who deserves to know his father. That has to take priority." Victor's expression crumpled. "Diana, I am so sorry. I know you are. And I am sorry too. For all of us." She turned to Meredith. "I am not angry with you either. You were a victim of that horrible woman as much as Victor was. Maybe more. You had to raise a child alone because she could not stand the thought of her son loving someone she had not chosen for him." "Constance," Meredith said quietly. "Victor spoke to her this morning." Diana's voice hardened slightly. She did not even try to deny it. She explained her reasoning like she was describing a successful business negotiation. How she had managed the situation, protected the family interests, ensured Victor would not be distracted from his potential. What did Victor say? He told her she would have no relationship with Owen, that she was not welcome at any family events, that if she ever interfered with his life again he would make sure every social circle and charity board in California knew exactly what she had done. Meredith looked at Victor. He met her eyes. "It was the least I could do," he said. 10 years too late. But it was the least I could do. They sat in silence for a moment. 3 people absorbing the shape of a new reality. "What happens now?" Meredith asked finally. "With the wedding?" "We postpone," Diana said simply. "We tell the guests there has been a family emergency, which is technically true. We ask them to enjoy the reception as a celebration of friendship instead. And then Victor and I take some time apart to figure out if there is still something worth salvaging here." "You would consider continuing the relationship?" Meredith asked, surprised. Diana shrugged. The gesture was elegant even in crisis. "I love him. That did not change overnight. But I need to know that if we do get married eventually it is because we both want it. Not because we have already invested too much to walk away." "That is remarkably mature. I am 37 years old." Diana's smile was tired but genuine. "I have been through enough to know that forcing something never works. If Victor and I are meant to be together we will find our way back. If not," she spread her hands, "at least we will have been honest with each other." Victor moved from the fireplace to kneel beside Diana. She allowed him to take her hands. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for understanding, for being willing to wait." "Do not thank me yet," Diana replied. "Go meet your son properly. Figure out what kind of father you want to be. And then in a few months we will talk." Meredith stood. "I should give you two some privacy." "No." Diana stood as well, releasing Victor's hands. "You should go introduce Victor to Owen. Properly. Without an audience of 200 people. Now. Is there a better time?" Diana moved to the door and opened it. "The boy has waited 9 years. He should not have to wait any longer." The walk back to the garden felt both endless and far too short. Meredith and Victor moved in silence past the staff already beginning to rearrange the afternoon's plans. Past guests murmuring questions they could not yet answer. Past Constance Pemberton, who watched them pass with an expression of barely controlled fury that neither of them acknowledged. Owen was exactly where he had promised to be. At a table near the window, talking with Lily about something that involved elaborate hand gestures and occasional references to tentacles. He looked up as they approached. His eyes moved from his mother to Victor and back. A small nod. As though he had been expecting this. "Owen," Meredith said. "This is Victor. He wanted to meet you properly." Victor crouched beside the table so that he was at Owen's eye level. For a moment neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, cataloguing similarities, finding common ground. "Hi," Victor said finally. His voice was rough. I am told you are interested in marine biology. Yes, Owen replied. Specifically bioluminescent organisms. I read a paper once about how quantum mechanics might explain bioluminescence. Something about photon emission and molecular structures. I did not understand most of it. Owen's eyes widened. What journal? I do not remember. But I could find it. If you wanted to read it together. Owen looked at his mother. The question in his eyes was clear. Is this real? Is this happening? Meredith nodded. Owen turned back to Victor. Okay, he said. I would like that. It was not a hug. It was not tears or dramatic declarations. It was two people who shared the same eyes and the same way of thinking deciding to start from where they were. Meredith watched them begin talking about the chemistry of light production in deep-sea creatures. Victor asking questions with genuine interest. Owen answering with the particular precision that characterized everything he said. This is what it looks like, she thought. When something broken starts to heal. Not with grand gestures. Not with explosions of emotion. Just two people finding their way toward each other, one conversation at a time. Behind them, the staff continued preparing for an event that would not happen as planned. Guests would be disappointed. Constance would be furious. The social columns would have a field day with whatever story eventually emerged. But here at this table, a father was meeting his son for the first time. And for this moment at least, that was all that mattered. The afternoon unfolded in fragments. Victor and Owen at the tide pool display in the estate's educational garden. Owen explaining the feeding habits of sea anemones. Victor listening with an attention that seemed almost hungry, as though trying to absorb 9 years of missed moments through sheer concentration. Diana making her announcement to the assembled guests. Graceful even in disappointment. The wedding is postponed due to unforeseen family circumstances. Please stay and enjoy the celebration we have prepared. Your understanding means more than we can express. Constance Pemberton leaving the estate without saying goodbye to anyone. Her car disappearing down the long drive like a retreating army. Meredith watching from the terrace as Victor pushed Owen on the garden swing. The sound of her son's laughter carrying across the lawn. A sound she had heard 1,000 times before, but never quite like this. Never with this particular quality of completeness. He is good with him. Diana appeared beside her holding 2 glasses of champagne. She offered one to Meredith. Better than I expected. Meredith took the glass. You are handling this remarkably well. I am too numb to do anything else. Diana sipped her champagne. Ask me again in a week when reality has fully set in. I really am sorry, Diana. If I had known, I never would have come. I believe you. Diana's voice was tired but not unkind. And honestly, part of me is glad you did. If Victor has a son, he needs to know him. Hiding from that would not have made it any less true. They watched Victor help Owen collect specimens from the garden's display pond. Scientific collaboration already forming. Does he look like him? Diana asked. When he was young. Before the company. Before the money. Yes. Meredith said quietly. Almost exactly. Diana nodded. That must be strange. Seeing your son and your past in the same face every day. I stopped noticing a long time ago. He is just Owen to me. My Owen. But lately, since getting here, since seeing Victor, I keep seeing the resemblances I had taught myself to ignore. That is probably healthy. Diana finished her champagne. You spent 10 years pretending he did not have a father. Now you cannot pretend anymore. The evening brought a modified reception. Dinner was served. Wine was poured. Guests adjusted their expectations and found that celebrating friendship was almost as satisfying as celebrating marriage. Perhaps more honest in some ways. Owen was allowed to stay up late. He sat between Meredith and Victor at a table near the dance floor eating cake and watching the adults move to music he did not particularly care about. Mom, he said during a pause between songs. What happens when we go home? Meredith had been wondering the same thing. She looked at Victor across their son's head. I have been thinking about that. Victor said carefully. My company has offices in Portland. I could spend more time on the West Coast. If that would be acceptable. Portland is 2 hours from us, Owen observed. If traffic is normal, I could manage 2 hours, Victor replied. Regularly. If your mother agrees. Owen turned to Meredith. Do you agree? I think, Meredith said slowly, that we should take things one step at a time. Get to know each other. See what works. Your life in Oregon is not going to change overnight. But he can visit. Owen pressed. Yes. He can visit. Owen nodded. Satisfied for now. He returned his attention to his cake. The dance floor cleared briefly between sets. Victor stood and offered his hand to Meredith. Would you? He asked. For old time's sake. She hesitated. Looked at Owen. Go ahead, Mom. Owen said without looking up. I will be here analyzing the structural integrity of this frosting. The dance floor felt larger than it was. Or maybe Meredith just felt smaller. Victor's hand at her waist was warm and familiar in a way that made her throat tighten. I do not know what to say, he admitted as they moved. I have had 10 years' worth of conversations with you in my head. Now that you are here, none of them seem right. Then do not say anything. They danced in silence. Around them other couples moved to the music. None of them carrying the particular weight of a decade of misunderstanding. I am not ready to forgive you, Meredith said eventually. Even if it was not your fault. Even if your mother orchestrated everything. You believed the worst of me. For 10 years you accepted that I had left you without a fight. I know. I spent 10 years believing you had thrown me away. Paid your mother to make me disappear. Every time I saw your face in a magazine, every time I read about your success, I thought about the man who knew he had a child and did not care. Meredith. I know it was not true now. But the feelings do not just evaporate because the facts have changed. I need time, Victor. I need to understand who you are now. Whether the man I loved is still in there somewhere. Whether he is someone I could trust with my son's heart. Our son. Victor corrected gently. My son. Meredith said firmly. Until you have earned the right to call him that. Until I know you will not disappear again. Victor nodded. His hand tightened briefly at her waist. I understand. Whatever timeline you need. However long it takes. I will be here. The music ended. They stepped apart. Across the room Owen was now explaining something to Lily using sugar packets as visual aids. His hands moved with the animated precision of a born teacher. He is extraordinary, Victor said watching him. I know. You did that. Alone. With no help. You made him into that. Meredith felt her eyes sting. I did what any mother would do. I loved him. I taught him. I answered his questions. The rest was just him. Will you tell me about it? Victor asked. Sometime. When you are ready. All the things I missed. His first words. His first steps. The night he decided he loved the ocean. Meredith looked at her son. At the stranger beside her who shared his eyes. At the unexpected terrain of a future she had not planned for. Yes. She said finally. Sometime. When I am ready. But for now we have a lot of the present to figure out. The reception wound down around midnight. Guests drifted back to their cottages pleasantly tired and only moderately confused about what exactly they had been celebrating. Owen fell asleep in his chair and had to be carried back by Victor while Meredith gathered their things. The walk to the cottage was quiet. Victor cradled Owen against his shoulder with surprising naturalness for a man who had never held his son before. At the cottage door Victor handed Owen gently to Meredith. Their arms touched during the transfer. Neither pulled away. Good night, Meredith. Good night, Victor. She watched him walk back toward the main house. His silhouette gradually absorbed by the darkness. Then she carried her son inside and laid him on his bed. Owen stirred as she removed his shoes. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. I like him. Owen murmured, already mostly asleep again. He asks good questions. Meredith pulled the blanket up to his chin. Go to sleep, sweetheart. We have a long drive tomorrow. Is he coming with us? No. Not yet. He has things to figure out here first. Owen nodded against his pillow. His eyes were already closed. But he will come later. Right. To visit. Yes. He will come later. Good. Owen's breathing deepened. His face relaxed into sleep. In the moonlight through the window she could see Victor's jaw. Victor's brow. Victor's way of breathing when completely at peace. Her son. Their son. The living proof of something that had been stolen from both of them. Meredith sat on the edge of his bed for a long time. Watching him sleep. Thinking about 10 years of questions that finally had answers. Thinking about 10 years more of questions that did not have answers yet. In the morning they would leave this place. Return to the life she had built on the Oregon coast. The small bungalow. The steady bookkeeping clients. The quiet rhythm of a world she had constructed specifically to avoid surprises. But the surprise had found her anyway. The past had caught up with her in a vineyard in Napa Valley. And nothing would be quite the same again. Outside the window the California stars wheeled overhead. The same stars that shone over Oregon. The same stars that Victor was probably watching right now from some window in the main house. Thinking about the same impossible situation. 10 years ago they had been torn apart by a woman who thought she knew best. Now they had a chance to rebuild what was lost. Whether they took that chance. Whether trust could be restored. Whether love could survive betrayal and time and the weight of all those missing years. Those questions would have to wait for morning. Meredith kissed her son's forehead and went to her own room. Sleep came eventually, carrying her into dreams that for the first time in a decade did not end with Victor walking away. In these dreams he stayed. The drive home took 11 hours. Meredith had planned to break it into 2 days with an overnight stop somewhere around Medford. But Owen wanted to keep going. He said he missed the ocean. He said he wanted to sleep in his own bed. He said the vineyard was beautiful but it was not home. She understood. She felt the same way. The need to return to familiar ground. To process everything that had happened in a place where the walls knew her. Where the view from the kitchen window was the same view she had looked at for 7 years. Where the sound of waves against the shore could drown out the noise in her head. They crossed the Oregon border just after sunset. The landscape shifting from California gold to Oregon green. Douglas firs replacing vineyards. The air growing cooler and damper through the cracked windows. Owen slept for most of the drive. When he was awake he asked questions. Careful, methodical questions that she recognized as his way of building a framework for new information. How often will he visit? I do not know yet. We need to figure that out. Will he call? Or video chat? Or send letters? Probably calls and video chats. I am not sure about letters. Does he know my birthday? He does now. I told him. What did he say? He said he was sorry he missed all of them. Owen processed this in silence for several miles. Are you going to get married? He asked eventually. That is a very big question. I know. But I want to understand the possibilities. Meredith glanced at her son in the rearview mirror. He was watching the trees go by with that particular focus that meant he was thinking hard about something. I do not know what is going to happen between Victor and me. We have a lot of history. Some of it is painful. We need time to figure out who we are now and whether we can trust each other. Because of the grandmother. Yes. Partly because of her. And partly because 10 years is a long time. People change. Have you changed? Meredith considered the question. Yes. I am not the same person I was when I knew Victor before. I am more careful now. More self-sufficient. Less willing to take risks. Is that good or bad? Both, I think. Being careful has kept us safe. But maybe it has also kept us from things that might have been good. Like having a father. The words landed with the particular weight of a child's honesty. Maybe. Meredith said quietly. Yes. Maybe. They arrived home just before midnight. The bungalow was dark and quiet and exactly as they had left it. Owen went straight to his room and fell asleep on top of his covers, still wearing his travel clothes. Meredith did not have the heart to wake him to change. She stood in the doorway watching him sleep. Her son. Their son. The boy who had asked about his father for years and now finally knew. What happened next was up to her. Up to Victor. Up to time and patience and the slow work of rebuilding what had been broken. She went to bed but did not sleep much. The ocean made its familiar sound outside her window. The same sound she had listened to for 7 years. The same sound that had carried her through single motherhood and financial worry, and the particular loneliness of raising a child with no one to share the weight. That loneliness might be ending now. Or it might be transforming into something more complicated. She did not know yet which. The first call came 3 days later. Meredith was at her desk working on quarterly reports for a small fishing company she had bookmarked for years. Owen was at school. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of waves and the clicking of her keyboard. Her phone rang. The same California number that had texted her about the barn meeting. Hello. It is Victor. There was static on the line. Bad connection or nervousness or both. Is this an okay time? It is fine. I was just working. I wanted to check in. See how you are doing. How Owen is adjusting. Meredith set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. We are doing okay. He went back to school yesterday. Told his best friend that he met his father at a wedding that did not happen. What did the friend say? Apparently he said cool and then asked if Owen wanted to play soccer at recess. That sounds like a healthy response. 9-year-olds are practical. Silence stretched across the line. Not uncomfortable exactly. More like the silence of two people who have too much to say and no idea where to start. How are you? Meredith asked finally. Victor exhaled. Exhausted. Relieved. Terrified. Some combination I cannot quite identify. Have you talked to Diana? Yesterday. She is leaving for Europe at the end of the week. A client in Milan who has been asking her to consult on a project. She says she needs distance. That sounds healthy. It probably is. Victor paused. She said she does not blame you. Either of us. She said the only villain in this story is my mother. Meredith thought about Constance. The elegant posture. The controlled expression. The way she had looked at Meredith 10 years ago like she was a problem to be managed. What happened with your mother? I meant what I said. She is not welcome in my life anymore. Not around Owen. Not around you. Not at any family event I have control over. That must be difficult. Whatever she did, she is still your mother. She is the woman who gave birth to me. Victor's voice had gone flat. She is also the woman who destroyed the life I wanted because it did not fit her plans. I am having trouble reconciling those two things. Are you getting support? Someone to talk to? I have a therapist. We have been working together for years. She is having a field day with all of this. Meredith smiled despite herself. I imagine she would be. Can I? Victor hesitated. Can I call Owen? Not now. I know he is at school. But later. When it is convenient. I just want to hear his voice. The request was so simple. So reasonable. The kind of thing a father would ask. Yes. You can call him. He gets home around 3:30 our time. Thank you, Meredith. Do not thank me. He is your son too. You have a right to know him. The calls became a pattern. Victor called Owen every other day at first. Then every day. Then sometimes twice a day when one of them had a question that could not wait. Questions about science projects. Questions about the book they had decided to read together. Questions about nothing at all that somehow lasted an hour. Meredith listened from the kitchen while pretending not to listen. The sound of her son laughing at something Victor said. The particular patience in Owen's voice when explaining a concept. The way they traded theories about bioluminescence like old colleagues rather than new acquaintances. He is really smart. Owen said one evening over dinner. Like actually smart. Not just adult smart where they pretend to understand things. You are really smart too. I know. But it is different when someone else is smart the same way. Does that make sense? It does. Owen pushed his green beans around his plate. The perpetual negotiation. Do you think he will actually visit? He said he would. But adults say things and then do not do them. Owen's voice was carefully neutral. Jake's dad said he would come to his birthday party and then he did not. Meredith reached across the table and took her son's hand. I cannot promise what Victor will or will not do. But I can tell you that he seems very committed to knowing you. He calls every day. He asks real questions. He remembers things you told him last week. That is true. Owen acknowledged. And if he lets you down, if he does not show up when he says he will, you can be angry about that. You have every right to be. Will you be angry? Probably. Meredith squeezed his hand. Mothers tend to be angry when someone hurts their children. Even if the someone is my father. Especially then. Owen considered this. Then he ate 3 green beans without being asked. The first visit came 6 weeks after the vineyard. Victor flew into Portland on a Friday afternoon. He rented a car and drove the 2 hours to their small coastal town. He checked into the only hotel that was not also a fishing lodge. And then he called to ask if he could come by. Meredith had spent the morning cleaning the house even though it was already clean. Rearranging pillows. Wiping counters that did not need wiping. Owen watched her with the quiet amusement of a child who understood more than he let on. You are nervous. I am not nervous. You cleaned the bathroom 3 times. It needed it. It did not. The doorbell rang at 4 o'clock. Owen answered before Meredith could get there. She found them standing in the doorway looking at each other with matching expressions of careful hope. Hi, Owen said. Hi, Victor replied. You can come in. This is our house. I can see that. Victor stepped inside. He was dressed more casually than she had ever seen him. Jeans and a sweater and shoes that looked like they had never walked anywhere more rugged than a city sidewalk. This is nice, he said, looking around. Comfortable. It is small, Owen observed. Mom says we do not need more space because it is just the 2 of us. 3. Meredith heard herself say. It is 3 of us now. Sometimes. Victor's eyes found hers. The gratitude in them was almost too much to bear. The weekend was strange and wonderful and exhausting. Victor slept at the hotel but spent his days with them. Saturday morning at the tide pools where Owen gave him a comprehensive tour of every species he had catalogued over the years. Saturday afternoon at the Marine Research Station where a friend of Meredith's worked and agreed to give them a private behind-the-scenes look at the rehabilitation tanks. Sunday morning Victor made breakfast. Pancakes that were slightly burned and eggs that were slightly runny and coffee that was perfect because coffee was hard to get wrong. Did Mom teach you to cook? Owen asked, picking the unburned bits out of his pancake. Nobody taught me to cook, Victor admitted. I mostly order delivery. Then why are you cooking now? Because it seemed like something a father should do. Owen considered this. Maybe you should take a class. Meredith laughed. She could not help it. The sound surprised all 3 of them. I think Owen might be right, she said when she had recovered. The intention is good. The execution needs work. Victor smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him since the vineyard. Not the polished professional smile of a man running a company. Something younger. More uncertain. More like the man she had known before. I will look into classes, he said. The goodbye on Sunday evening was harder than Meredith expected. Owen hugged Victor at the door. A real hug. Not the awkward side embrace of new acquaintances, but the full commitment of a child who had decided this person mattered. When will you come back? Owen asked. 2 weeks. Victor replied. Maybe sooner if I can move some meetings around. You should move them. I will try. Victor looked at Meredith over Owen's head. She nodded slightly. Permission for something neither of them had named. Thank you, he said. For letting me be here. For letting me be part of this. Do not thank me yet, she replied. We are still figuring things out. I know. But I am grateful anyway. He left. His rental car disappeared down the winding road toward the highway. Owen stood on the porch watching until the taillights vanished completely. He is coming back, Meredith said. You heard him. 2 weeks. I know. Owen did not move from the porch. I just wanted to make sure he actually left. That he was real. He is real. Sometimes things that seem real turn out to be dreams. And things that seem like dreams turn out to be real. Meredith put her arm around her son's shoulders. That is very philosophical for a 9-year-old. I have been thinking a lot lately. About what? About how different everything is now. Owen finally turned to go inside. I have a father. An actual father who calls me and visits and wants to know things about my life. How does that feel? Strange. Good. Scary. Owen shrugged. Complicated. Yes. Meredith agreed. Complicated is exactly right. The weeks became months. Victor visited every 2 weeks at first. Then more often as he restructured his schedule and opened a satellite office in Portland. He hired a local team. Delegated more responsibilities to his San Francisco executives. Made himself available in ways that a year ago would have been impossible. Owen thrived. His teachers reported increased engagement. His questions became even more sophisticated. His occasional anxiety about belonging somewhere transformed into a quiet confidence that Meredith had always hoped he would develop. The genetic testing happened 3 months after the vineyard. Victor's suggestion. A comprehensive panel to understand Owen's health risks and needs. The results confirmed what Meredith had always suspected. A connective tissue condition that explained the joint pain and easy bruising that had worried her for years. Now they had a name for it. And a treatment plan. And the resources to implement both. I will cover everything, Victor said when the results came in. Specialists. Physical therapy. Whatever he needs. That is not necessary. Meredith replied automatically. It is not about necessary. It is about making sure our son has the best possible care. Our son. The phrase still felt strange in her mouth. New and fragile and worth protecting. Okay. She said finally. But I want to be involved in every decision. He is my son first. Of course. Always. Diana returned from Europe in the spring. She called Meredith before she called Victor. A gesture that meant something about which relationship she had decided to prioritize. I need to see you, Diana said. Not to ask about Victor. I need to see you for me. They met at a coffee shop in Portland. Neutral territory. Diana looked different. Tanned from Italian sun. Something settled in her face that had not been there before. You look well, Meredith said. I feel well. Surprisingly. Europe was good for me. Time to think. Time to figure out what I actually want versus what I thought I was supposed to want. What did you figure out? Diana wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. That I was marrying Victor because he fit the picture I had in my head. Successful. Attractive. Devoted. But I never asked whether the picture itself made sense. What do you mean? I mean that I wanted to be married to someone impressive more than I wanted to be married to Victor specifically. He was a category. A achievement. Not a person I had really let myself know. Meredith absorbed this. And now. Now I am trying to figure out what I actually want. Not what looks good. Not what impresses other people. What makes me feel alive and useful and real. Have you found answers? Some. Diana smiled. I am moving to Amsterdam. A design firm there offered me a partnership. Smaller scale than what I was doing but more interesting work. More room to grow. That sounds wonderful. It is terrifying. But the good kind of terrifying. The kind that means you are moving toward something instead of running away from something. They talked for 2 hours. About design and travel and the strange paths life takes. About friendship and how it survives or does not survive the complications of adulthood. I do not blame you, Diana said finally. For any of it. I hope you know that. I know. But it still feels complicated. Everything is complicated. Diana reached across the table and squeezed Meredith's hand. The question is whether the complication is worth working through. Is it? With Victor. Is that what you are asking? Diana shook her head. I am not asking anything. Whatever happens between you two is your business. I just want you to know that I am not standing in the way. That door is open if you want to walk through it. That is generous. It is practical. Diana stood gathering her bag. I spent a year with Victor. I know how he talks about things that matter to him. And I know how he talked about you. Even when he did not know who you were to him. Some part of him was always looking for you. I just did not realize it until the vineyard. Diana left for Amsterdam a month later. She and Meredith exchanged emails occasionally. Updates about projects and weather and the particular challenges of learning Dutch at 38. The friendship was different now. Changed by circumstances neither had chosen. But it survived. In its own way, it was stronger for having been tested. Victor's visits became more frequent as summer approached. Every weekend when possible. Sometimes longer stretches when work allowed. He and Owen had developed their own rhythms. Science experiments on the kitchen table. Tide pool expeditions that lasted for hours. Long conversations about the nature of light and the behavior of deep-sea creatures and the mathematics of wave patterns. Meredith watched from a careful distance. Present but not hovering. Part of the equation but not always the variable being solved. "Can I ask you something?" Victor said one evening. Owen was in bed. They were sitting on the porch watching the moon rise over the water. "You can ask." He turned to face her. The moonlight caught the silver starting to appear at his temples. He was aging. They both were. But on him it looked like refinement. Edges being honed. "What happened between us? Before. When we were young. Do you think about it?" "Sometimes." She admitted. "Less than I used to. But yes. Do you think we could have worked? If my mother had not interfered. If everything had gone the way it was supposed to." Meredith considered the question. She had considered it 1,000 times over the years. Always arriving at the same answer. "I do not know. We were young. We did not know who we were yet. Maybe we would have built something lasting. Maybe we would have fallen apart on our own. But we did not get to find out. No. We did not." Victor was quiet for a moment. The waves made their patient sound against the shore. "I want to find out now," he said finally. "I know it is different. We are different. But I want to know if there is something still there. Something worth building." Meredith felt her heart rate increase. The same quickening she remembered from years ago. The same sense of standing at the edge of something she could not see the bottom of. "Victor, I am not asking for an answer tonight," he said quickly. "I am not asking for anything you are not ready to give. I just need you to know that the question exists. That I am asking it. That I will keep asking it as long as you will let me." The honesty in his voice was almost unbearable. "I need more time," she said. "To know who you are now. To trust that you will not disappear again. I understand. It is not about punishment. I am not trying to make you suffer. I know. It is about protection. Owen's and mine. We have been on our own for so long. Letting someone in is terrifying." Victor nodded. "Whatever you need. However long it takes. I am not going anywhere." They sat in silence watching the moon climb higher. The same moon that had shone over the vineyard 6 months ago when everything changed. The same moon that would shine tomorrow and the day after and for all the days they had left to figure this out. "I think about it too," Meredith said eventually. "What we might have been. What we could still become." Victor's hand found hers in the darkness. She did not pull away. The summer passed in a blur of visits and phone calls and slowly expanding trust. Owen celebrated his 10th birthday with both parents present. Victor flew in 3 days early to help with preparations. They decorated the backyard together. String lights and paper lanterns and a banner that said "Happy Birthday" in Owen's favorite shade of blue. The party was small. A few friends from school. Lily, who had become Owen's closest companion since meeting at the vineyard. Meredith's co-worker who had known Owen since he was a toddler. And Victor. Standing beside Meredith as they watched Owen blow out candles and make a wish he refused to share. "What do you think he wished for?" Victor asked quietly. "I do not know. But I hope it was something he already has." Owen looked up as if sensing their attention. He smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. "This is the best birthday I have ever had," he announced to the assembled guests. "Thank you all for coming. Especially my dad who flew here from California just to watch me eat cake." The word landed with particular weight. Dad. Not Victor. Not Mr. Pemberton. Not the carefully neutral phrasing Owen had been using for months. Dad. Victor's hand found Meredith's again. She felt him trembling slightly. You okay? She whispered. Better than okay. He whispered back. That is the first time he called me that. I noticed. Is it wrong that I want to cry? No. It is exactly right. The party continued around them. Children laughing. Cake being distributed. Presents being opened with appropriate enthusiasm. But Meredith was only half present. The rest of her was somewhere else. In a future she was starting to believe might actually be possible. A future where their family was not just the three of them in careful orbit, but something more integrated. Something more whole. Victor stayed for a week after the party. They fell into a rhythm that felt almost natural. Morning coffee on the porch. Afternoons at the beach or the research station or wherever Owen's curiosity led. Evenings with dinner and conversation and the slow building of shared history. On the last night before Victor was scheduled to fly back to San Francisco, they sat on the porch again. Owen was inside allegedly doing homework but probably reading about octopuses. I have been thinking. Meredith said. About what? About your question. From a few months ago. About whether there might be something between us worth building. Victor went very still. I remember. I have an answer. But I want you to understand where it comes from. Okay. Meredith turned to face him. In the fading light his expression was careful. Hopeful. Afraid. 10 years ago I loved you completely. I would have done anything for you. When I thought you had abandoned me, it broke something inside me that I was not sure could ever be fixed. Meredith. Let me finish. She held up a hand. For 10 years I built a life around that broken thing. I made decisions based on protecting myself and Owen from ever being hurt that way again. I told myself I did not need anyone. That we were complete on our own. And now I am not sure any of that was true. I think I was surviving. Not living. I think I was hiding from the possibility of being hurt again by refusing to let anyone close enough to hurt me. Victor's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. I am so sorry. For everything you went through. For all the years you were alone. You did not know. That is not your fault. But I should have fought harder. I should have questioned my mother. I should have found you somehow. Maybe. Meredith agreed. But you cannot change the past. None of us can. The only question is what we do with the present. What do you want to do with the present? Meredith took a breath. The ocean made its patient sound. The stars were beginning to emerge overhead. I want to try. She said finally. With you. I want to see if what we had can become something new. Victor exhaled. A sound that carried 10 years of waiting and hoping and not quite believing. Really. Really. But slowly. Carefully. With Owen's well-being at the center of every decision. Of course. And no pressure. If it does not work, we find a way to remain good co-parents. Owen does not lose his father because we could not figure out how to be together. I agree. Victor's hand found hers. We take it one step at a time. We communicate. We are honest even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. Yes. Especially then. They sat in the growing darkness. Hands intertwined. The future spreading out before them like the ocean. Vast and unknowable and full of possibilities. Mom. Owen's voice came from the doorway. Are you two holding hands? Meredith felt herself blush like a teenager. Maybe. Cool. Owen said with studied casualness. Does this mean you are getting married? No. Victor said quickly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. We are just exploring possibilities. Like scientists. Exactly like scientists. Meredith agreed. Forming hypotheses. Gathering data. Drawing careful conclusions. That sounds responsible. Owen considered for a moment. But if you do decide to get married, you should do it here. On the beach. With the tide pools as decorations. We will keep that in mind. Owen nodded satisfied and retreated back inside. He is remarkable. Victor said quietly. He is. And we made him. Somehow, despite everything, we made that. Victor squeezed her hand. The best thing either of us has ever done. The year that followed was a process of slow integration. Victor moved his primary residence to Portland. Close enough for regular visits. Far enough to maintain appropriate boundaries while they figured things out. He and Meredith dated. An old-fashioned word for an unconventional situation. Dinners when Owen was at sleepovers. Long phone calls when they were apart. The gradual rebuilding of intimacy that had been interrupted a decade ago. Owen watched with the careful attention he brought to everything. Asking occasional questions. Offering occasional opinions. Mostly just observing as his parents learned how to be together. The medical treatments continued. Owen's joint pain diminished significantly with the right specialists and the right protocols. Physical therapy helped with flexibility. A modified activity schedule meant he could participate in things his body had previously made difficult. Victor paid for everything without being asked. Meredith let him. Some battles were not worth fighting. Constance Pemberton tried to make contact twice. Once through a lawyer who was quickly dismissed. Once through a letter addressed to Owen directly that Victor intercepted before it could be delivered. She will not stop, Meredith said when she heard about the letter. People like her never stop. She will stop, Victor replied. Or she will face consequences she cannot imagine. What kind of consequences? The kind that come from underestimating how much a man will protect his son. The letter was never discussed again. Constance retreated into whatever corner of society she still occupied. A diminished queen of a diminished kingdom. Diana visited once. A layover on her way from Amsterdam to somewhere else. She met them all for dinner at a restaurant in Portland. You look happy, she said to Meredith. Really genuinely happy. I am, Meredith admitted. It took a while to get here. But yes. Diana looked at Victor. At Owen, who was explaining something about marine invertebrates to a waiter who seemed genuinely interested. At the family they had become against all odds. I am glad, Diana said. For all of you. This is what should have happened from the beginning. You are not bitter. Diana shook her head. I was. For a while. But then I realized that bitterness only hurts the person carrying it. And I had better things to do with my energy. Like building a life in Amsterdam. Like building a life that is actually mine. Not the one I was told to want. Not the one that looked impressive. Just mine. That sounds wonderful. It is. Diana raised her glass. To unexpected paths. To unexpected paths. They clinked glasses. The sound carrying through the restaurant like a small celebration. Owen's 11th birthday arrived with less fanfare than his 10th. He requested a quiet celebration. Just family. He was old enough now to understand that family meant something different than it used to. That the three of them were enough. That more was not always better. They had cake on the beach at sunset. Owen's request. Candles flickering in the breeze while the tide pools glittered in the last light. Make a wish, Meredith said. Owen closed his eyes. Thought for a moment. Blue. What did you wish for? Victor asked. Owen opened his eyes. Nothing. I already have everything I wanted. The words landed with a weight that belied their simplicity. Victor's eyes grew bright. Meredith felt her throat tighten. Everything. She managed. Well. Owen amended. A larger telescope would be nice. And maybe a trip to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. But the important things. Yes. Everything. They ate cake as the sun finished setting. Three people on a beach who had found each other against impossible odds. Who had rebuilt what was broken. Who had learned that family is not just who you are born to but who you choose and who chooses you. Are you happy, Mom? Owen asked later. When Victor was packing up the remains of the celebration. Meredith looked at her son. At his green eyes so like his father's. At the jaw that had sharpened over the year into something unmistakably familiar. At the boy who had become the center of everything good in her life. Yes, sweetheart. I am happy. Good. Owen nodded seriously. You deserve it. You worked really hard for a long time. You should get to rest now. I'm not sure rest is exactly what is happening. Owen smiled. The same smile she had seen emerge over the past year. More confident. More complete. You know what I mean. She did know. Rest was not about stopping. It was about no longer carrying the weight alone. It was about finally having someone to share the burden with. Yes, she said. I know what you mean. Victor returned from the car. The last of the birthday supplies stowed. Ready to head home. He asked. Home. The word meant something different now. Not just the small bungalow on the coast. Something larger. Something that included a man in Portland who called every day and visited every weekend and looked at her sometimes like she was still the answer to a question he had not known he was asking. Ready, Meredith said. They walked back up the beach together. Owen between them. Each parent holding one of his hands. Behind them the tide came in. Erasing their footprints. Making way for whatever would come next. The question came on a Tuesday. Nothing special about the day. Ordinary in every way. Victor had come for his regular weekend visit and then decided to stay a few extra days because work could wait and this could not. They were on the porch again. Their porch. The place where every important conversation seemed to happen now. I have been thinking. Victor said. You are always thinking. Meredith replied. About us. About where we go from here. Meredith turned to look at him. He was nervous. She could tell by the way he kept adjusting his position. The way his hands would not stay still. What conclusion have you reached? Victor took a breath. Reached into his pocket. Pulled out a small box that she recognized immediately for what it was. Meredith. Victor. I know we said slow. I know we said no pressure. But I have been carrying this for 6 months and I cannot carry it anymore. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not the ostentatious diamond she might have expected from a billionaire. Something simpler. An emerald surrounded by small sapphires. Green like their son's eyes. Blue like the ocean that had become their home. I am not asking for an answer today. Victor said quickly. I am not even asking the question officially. I am just asking if you would be willing to consider the question. Someday. When you are ready. Meredith looked at the ring. At the man holding it. At the years stretching behind them and the years stretching ahead. 11 years ago she had loved him without reservation. Without protection. Without understanding how much it would cost when everything fell apart. Now she loved him differently. With her eyes open. With full knowledge of what they had lost and what they had found. With the wisdom that comes from building something alone and the courage that comes from choosing to build something together. Ask me, she said. Victor blinked. What? Ask me the question. The real question. Not the preliminary version. Victor stared at her. Then he moved. Lowered himself to one knee on the weathered porch boards. Held the ring up where the morning light could catch it. Meredith Callahan. Will you marry me? She looked at him. This man who had broken her heart without knowing it. Who had searched for her without finding her. Who had discovered a son and chosen to become a father with dedication and grace. She thought about Owen inside the house. Probably listening at the window. Probably already preparing his opinion about the appropriate venue. She thought about Diana in Amsterdam. Building a life that was finally her own. Sending her blessing from across an ocean. She thought about Constance in whatever exile she now occupied. The villain of this story who would never truly understand what she had destroyed and what had risen from the ashes. She thought about herself. The woman she had become through 10 years of solitary strength. The woman she was becoming now through the terrifying joy of letting someone in. Yes, she said. Yes. The word was simple. The meaning was not. Victor stood. His hands were shaking as he slid the ring onto her finger. A perfect fit. Of course it was. You said yes. I said yes. They kissed. A real kiss. The kind that carried history and hope in equal measure. Behind them the front door banged open. Did she say yes? Owen demanded. I could not hear properly through the window. She said yes. Victor replied. Still holding Meredith. Still looking at her like she was something precious. Excellent. Owen pumped his fist. This means I get to be best man, right? We will discuss it. I am your only son. There is no discussion. Meredith laughed, the sound surprising her with its fullness. It's freedom. He has a point, she said. He always has a point. Victor agreed. That is one of the many things I love about him. Owen joined them on the porch, inserted himself between them. The family they had become holding on to each other in the morning light. So when is the wedding? Owen asked. I have opinions about the menu. Of course you do. And the music. And the guest list. And definitely the decorations. We are in trouble, Victor said to Meredith. Complete trouble. She agreed. But the good kind. Owen clarified. The kind that means you are building something instead of running from something. Meredith recognized her own words reflected back. The wisdom of a child who had been paying attention all along. Yes, she said. The good kind. They stood there together. Three people who had found their way through impossible circumstances to something that looked remarkably like happiness. Behind them the ocean continued its patient rhythm. The same waves that had witnessed everything. That would witness everything still to come. The wedding happened 6 months later. On the beach. At sunset. With tide pools as decorations. Just as Owen had specified. Meredith wore a simple dress the color of sea foam. Victor wore a suit that had probably cost more than her car. Owen wore a bow tie he had picked out himself and shoes he complained about the entire ceremony. Diana flew in from Amsterdam to serve as witness. An unexpected reconciliation that felt right in ways none of them had anticipated. The vows were simple. Promises to love and protect. To communicate even when it was hard. To put their son at the center of every decision. Owen read a poem he had written about bioluminescence and love. Something about how some creatures make their own light and how the best families do the same. There were tears. There was laughter. There was cake that Victor had learned to make himself in the cooking class Owen had been right to suggest. And when it was over, when the guests had departed and the decorations had been collected and Owen had finally agreed that yes, it was bedtime, Meredith and Victor stood together on the porch that had witnessed so much. We did it, Victor said. We did. Was it what you expected? Meredith thought about the question. About the journey that had led here. About the vineyard where everything changed and the years before that when she thought she knew the story and the years since when she learned she had only known part of it. No. She said finally. It was better. Victor pulled her close. The ring on her finger caught the moonlight. The ocean made its eternal sound. I love you, he said. I have loved you for 11 years without knowing it. I will love you for the rest of my life with full knowledge of what that means. Meredith leaned into him. Let herself rest for the first time in longer than she could remember. I love you too, she said. I never stopped. Even when I thought I hated you. Even when I built walls to keep you out. Some part of me was always waiting. For what? For this. For you. For the life we should have had all along. They stood there until the moon set and the stars wheeled overhead and the first hints of dawn began to color the eastern sky. Behind them in his bedroom Owen slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams belonged to a boy whose family had finally found its way home. And if there were ghosts of the past that lingered, if there were wounds that had not fully healed, if there were questions that would never be answered and losses that could never be recovered, well, that was part of the story too. But it was not the ending. The ending was this. 3 people on a beach in Oregon. Building something new from the fragments of something old. Choosing love over fear. Choosing trust over protection. Choosing each other over all the easier paths they might have taken. The ending was a family. Hard won. Imperfect. Worth every moment of the journey. The ending was a beginning. And that was more than enough. If this story of second chances touched your heart, make sure to subscribe for more powerful stories about love, forgiveness, and the unexpected ways life brings people together. Because sometimes the most beautiful beginnings arise from what we think are endings. And the family we create is not always the one we planned, but exactly the one we were always meant to find.